Welcome to the BriteVibe podcast. At BriteVibe, we believe everyone deserves to be happy. But in today's world, everywhere you turn, there is division and negativity. At BriteVibe, we have created a global movement to bring 8 million people together who are inspired to live bright, live bold, and share bright vibes. Alone, it can be hard to change, but together we can change the world. Welcome to the BriteVibe podcast. Well, Sue Kennedy, welcome to the BriteVibe podcast. Happy to have you on today.
Thank you, Matt, very much for having me. It's my absolute pleasure to be here with you.
Yeah, so I love this whole post-world calamity thing because it allows us to connect in ways that we would have never connected before. We were just talking right before we came on. You're actually in Australia,
Yes.
and I'm on the East Coast of the United States in North Carolina. So you're at 9 a.m., I'm at 5 p.m., but it's just amazing that we're able to have these conversations that we would have probably never had before. Even, I mean, we're seeing each other face to face. Before, if we were podcasting, we might have connected, but it's so much different when we can actually see each other in the world. So yeah, it's just so exciting to meet people from all over the world.
It is. I'm loving this because I'm meeting so many amazing people. It's fantastic. Absolutely love it.
Yeah. Well, let me introduce you first. So you're the owner and founder of Author Academy. We're going to get in today about kind of telling your story, telling not your story, people's stories, people's stories. You help tell people's stories through helping them write books. And I think right now there's probably more people writing stories about their lives and books than probably ever before in the history of man. So you're helping facilitate. So I'm really curious about how you're doing that. But you live in Australia. Have you always lived in Australia?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
so you're born, raised,
Born, bred. Yep.
born, bred. Which part of Australia do you live in?
Sydney.
Sydney. Okay, I've been to Sydney once. I have spent a little bit of time there. Beautiful city, beautiful people, very friendly. People know how to have fun.
Yeah, the people are lovely. I must admit. I do love our countryside, our climate, everything about it. Really is just lovely. We're not so hidden now. We were
Right,
hidden for a while. People didn't really know who or what or why.
right.
We, which was kind of nice
hmm
because we were just left to our own devices. But it is nice to connect with the rest of the world, and we aren't as small and hidden as we have been.
Right.
But that's okay. It's, as I said, and as we were saying, it's so lovely to be able to connect with so many beautiful people all around the world.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
fantastic.
it is. And so you're on a podcast today. We're going to talk about what you do, which is basically coach authors. But really, when we talk about helping people, I think a lot of people probably don't know that they have a story to tell, but I think everybody has a story to tell. And whether you're writing a book for yourself, writing a book for others, writing a book for your kids, I haven't written a book yet, but it seems like every time I turn around, there's these little ideas percolate. I literally was doing some AI stuff today saying, hey, what if I write about this? What could it look like? What could it feel like? Right. I was kind of feeling out some stuff today. So you help well, your purpose is to change people's lives by empowering them to write their story. Typically, who are you helping write their story? Because I know you work with business people, you probably work with different types of people, but typically what kind of stories are you helping people tell? And then what usually is the point or the purpose of that story?
Well, they can be the same, but they're probably two lots of people, as you said, business owners, to get their story out there and be the authority in that space. And I can share with you in a minute
Mhm,
about how that works because it
mhm,
worked for me amazingly.
mhm.
And I also help people write their stories like personal stories. So anything that, perhaps they've been through some kind of trauma.
Mhm.
Again, this is how I got into it. It was because of my own personal trauma. And from there, it's grown into this. And I did it initially to write a story, I did research and wrote about depression because it was what I was going through
Mhm.
at the
Mhm.
time. And I thought, well, how amazing, because I actually considered suicide at one
Yes.
point.
Yep.
I
I
just
hear
went,
you.
wow, what's that about? What's
Mhm.
going on? And how did I get to that point? I know how I got there, but yeah, it just all came at once and
Mhm.
it sort of blew me over. And anyway, so from there I did research and wrote a book. And then I went, I did the research and then I thought, why don't I put this into a book?
Mhm.
One, it's to help heal myself, but also how amazing if I can help other people as well.
Mhm.
Sharing, my story and what I've found and researched about depression. So
So that
So
was the
that
first book.
yes,
Oh, and
yeah,
how long ago was that?
about 15 years ago, maybe
Okay.
no, maybe longer, no longer.
Mhm,
Oh, no, about 15 because I just lost my dog that actually pulled me out of it, and he
mm,
was just over 16.
mhm.
So he was about a year old or something like that when it all happened, yeah.
Okay, so you went through a traumatic experience. I was just literally on a podcast earlier today with Bruce Feiler, which I didn't know Bruce before today, but he was writing about these things and these life traumas, and he called them life quakes, like earthquakes,
Mm,
but like you have this life quake, and he was relating how typically, we believe that we should heal faster than we actually do. He said he studied over, I think, 500 different people, and they've all had life quakes, some major, some less major. But in every instance, he said it takes about 5 years to navigate from a life quake, not a tremor, but an actual quake, back to some new way of being. Right. So, because
exactly.
there's, there's grief, there's questioning, there's doubt, and he said, and you have to kind of allow yourself that space to take that time, that five-ish, 4 or 5 years. Otherwise, you're not learning the lessons. You're not going to be successful at the next thing, whatever
Oh,
of life, because you haven't really spent the time to do the work. He said, what happens with like type A personalities is a lot of times they have a traumatic life quake, and then they go into like making a bunch of lists and checking a bunch of boxes and hiring a bunch of consultants, and they never really experience the pain and the grief and the sorrow and all the ugly emotions, I would call them. They're not ugly, but all the necessary emotions to actually, use that going forward to transition into something, the next phase, like a metamorphosis. You can't rush the butterfly out of the cocoon. So you went through this trauma, this life quake, as Bruce would say, and then through that, at some point, you wrote a book about the very thing that you were experiencing, which was this depression.
yes,
Okay.
correct.
And you did your research, and then you wrote the book, and then what happened?
So then went on to I wrote other books as well. I was asked to run a workshop for business owners on social media
Mhm,
because I teach all that kind of stuff as well. And I went, how awesome would it be to have books at the back of the room to sell?
mhm,
So I said yes to the workshop, thought, now I have to create a workshop around it. Then I thought, now I've decided I want to write books. So I quickly created the workshop. I mean, I had about 6 months to do it, so it
mhm,
wasn't too bad. And then I wrote the three different books and got them all written and published.
mhm.
And so, yeah, ran the workshop with those books. And then from there, wrote all kinds of other books. And one was about how to write a book, which then turned into a workshop. And then, of course, sort of morphed into my coaching program from there.
So you've got business leaders coming to you, or business people coming to you, and they're writing a book for the subject matter expert in their field. So give us some examples of some of the content or some of the industries that you've helped authors write books for, just to help spur ideas as people are listening to this.
Yeah, so I've helped builders, coaches, counselors, that kind of stuff, health and well-being in that space as well, because I'm sort of, probably attract those kind of people as well as the people that have been through trauma as well. They're the ones that I attract. And to share that story, like
Mhm,
with what I was saying
mhm.
earlier, that it helps you as a business owner. I used to be part of a networking group, BNI, which I think
Oh,
was
yeah, yeah,
founded
yeah. Yeah,
very
it's in the States. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, it was founded
yeah.
by Ivan in the States. So I was the vice president at the time, and that was the three books that I had for that workshop. I actually had that and had those books, and I took them into the meeting that I went to that particular day, and I said to the president, "Oh, look what arrived in the mail yesterday," and that was my three books. And she's like, "Oh my goodness!" And so she's jumped up, started the meeting. She said, "I've got to share because this is so exciting." And she showed them my books and she said, "Sue's just written and published these books." And everyone's like, "What?" And like, you know, th- they knew me, they knew who I was, but they didn't really see me.
Right.
And then as soon as they knew I'd written these books, after the meeting, they all came and hovered around me, asking questions, purchasing the book, started actually seeing me and talking to me. And I'm like, wow, if I would have known this was going to be the reaction, I would have done it years ago.
Mhm.
So, that just gave me so much more credibility having those books. They were like, "Wow, you're amazing." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, didn't you know that before?"
I love it. And again, that's is why I know you're Australian. You're like, "Well, of course I'm amazing. What what else would I be?" Right?
Yeah, exactly.
I love it.
So, yeah.
And
So,
what were the
yeah.
books on?
So one was about going, from offline to online because it was back in the space
Yep,
where everyone was
yep,
just sort of moving
right.
online.
Migrating, mhm,
Yeah, and Google Plus, which is, of course, never ended up lasting,
mhm.
and then, LinkedIn. It was
Okay,
very fun. When I wrote the book about LinkedIn, I just went on to check a few stats just to
mhm,
make sure that I had it right. Got in there, and that was when they had just did a big overhaul
mhm.
platform, and I just went, "Are you kidding me? I now have to rewrite part of the book," because, I was giving step by step,
Right, right, of
up
what to
here.
do and right,
Yeah.
got it. So you were basically writing business type books for business professionals to use these platforms or use this
Yes,
technology. Got it, okay. And so you wrote these books, you were at the BNI meeting, people read the title or they talked about the titles, and then you became the person to go to with questions about these things, right?
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. It does seem because I run this podcast, and this is I do it to meet interesting people like yourself and have conversations, and hopefully bring ideas, thoughts, higher vibration stuff to people that are listening. I've always thought, and I guess you're confirming for me that when you write a book, it gives you, I won't say celebrity status, but it does give you the subject matter expert kind of badge, no matter what's in the book. But at least it opens the door for those conversations when you write these books. Is that fair to say?
Oh, exactly, and I think this is the thing. A lot of people stop and think, "Well, wow, that's a huge achievement. I don't know if I could do it." And that's why they look at you in that light. It's like, "Wow, that's something I would love to do," and have never, thought I could do it. So that's why they look at you in that light.
And so for people who have never written a book, but I've heard people say before, everybody has a book inside them. It's just a matter of where they actually write it or not. But it seems like that there's something very cathartic and very almost healing in the process of writing a book. And I think that's probably true for business books, but especially for trauma books, right?
Hmm,
Or
exactly.
life transition books. There's something about it that just writing the book is a healing process in and of itself, or an awareness. Maybe healing's the wrong word, but you gain awareness by writing something about something that you've experienced. You probably get better through the writing of the book at the thing that you're writing about. And if it's
Definitely.
a life transition, you get insights into the transition, probably, and make more meaning of it as you
Mm.
write the book versus is probably, I'm assuming that it goes from kind of happening to you to happening for you through the process of writing a book. You look at it as something that you needed to do versus something that waylaid you. But I'm just guessing.
No, no, you're 100% right. That's exactly what it is. Like even for business book, you learn in the process, you learn about you and the business, that you may not have had the time to actually sit and really allow that to come through
Hmm.
properly. That
Hmm.
makes sense. So it does. And I think it gives you also validation that you are the expert. Like, it's like, yeah, I do actually know how to do this. I am the expert in this particular field or
Hmm.
industry. So, I think it's very important and has that healing component. And definitely for people that are writing about their trauma or life story, there's of course a lot of healing. Like for me, that was the thing that got me through, you know, was writing about it. Then later on, I went through cancer as well a few years
Oh.
ago,
Mhm.
and what got me out of that was, well, writing about it. I didn't write a book as such. I'm still yet to do that. I just haven't
Mhm.
had the time. But I did journal, and I also did some painting, which is part of my coaching program, and I have a couple of different methods that I use to be able to dig deep and allow the story and what's going on inside to come through without reliving the trauma, of course, just to do it in a gentle way so that we get it out of ourselves and out. Because if it stays within, it turns into disease. So,
Mhm.
this is why it's really important to write about it as well as do the art component so that you really like, because a lot of the time, our conscious is not wanting to live that. It's sort of like trying to keep us safe,
Mhm.
which is good. It's very good, but it's also dangerous because if we don't action it, as we were talking earlier, if we don't take action, then you can't move forward. So being able to have that, your subconscious be able to gently remind you of what it is and how to, what that next step is, it's very powerful. So this is why I add that into it. Because I mean, us brainstorming about things is very, very important. But this actually takes you on a deeper level, which is really amazing. I just love the work. And, I did it with the cancer and you know, I came out the other end, which is fantastic.
Mhm. Oh, totally. And so let's get into the process then of how people go about writing a book. How do you start, but then kind of, what's the path?
Yep. So I have a 5-step process and we outline the book. We
Mhm.
meet on Zoom every fortnight. I hold you accountable. I make you do homework because you do have to write. I can't write the book for you as much as I'd love to, but I
Mhm.
can't.
Mhm.
Well, it's not my story, is
Right.
pretty much
Right.
what
Yeah,
it is.
exactly.
The other person's story, but I hold your hand and help you get it written. Because I know when I first started, I would love to have had someone like myself to help me because back then there were no such things as book coaches. I had to do it all on my own. So I've refined it and made it a lot easier. So we go through all that. There's a whole heap of things that we do along the way, making sure that the book flows and, you know, getting it all nice and wonderful. Part of as I said, the painting portion of it is really, I believe, important part of the
Mhm.
program because, as I said, it allows you to unblock, whether that is you're just stuck because you don't know where you want the story to go or where it should go or, where it should land. It helps you get clear on that, but it also helps heal. So that's a big part of it. And then, of course, we do the editing of the book for you. We design it. So we do the formatting and design, and it also can include printed copies or not.
Mm.
So, because for some people, like, if they're in the States, for instance, it might be more cost effective for me to just send the file and you print it over there because
Right.
the postage is horrendous.
Mhm.
So yeah, so pretty much I'd take you from A to Z
Mhm.
in the process of getting from idea to published book.
And for like a business book, about how long, if somebody's like, yeah, I want to write something about my business, about how long a process, and I know that's probably determined, and you can tell me the factors that play into that, but about how long a process is that from an idea to an actual having something to be published?
I do offer 3-month and 6-month programs,
Mhm.
and it just depended on how quickly you want to get it done and how much time and commitment you can put towards it. So it's how serious are you about getting it done? I suppose is what it boils down to.
Mhm. All right. Well, that's very interesting. Well, what else would you want people to know about this process that would maybe help them decide if they want to write a book or not?
Look, if you're like what you said, things are starting to sort of hover,
Mhm.
or dropping in, and you're starting to really think about it. Like, yeah, maybe I could. You know, if you're thinking like that, then you need to be really starting to get serious and think about, well, what's the next steps? And I'm happy to have a brainstorming session with you, which my offer is to have a page where people can go and actually book in for a half an hour session with me to brainstorm.
Mhm.
But there's also all sorts of other little fun gifts on there for you as well. And I
Mhm.
think did I send you that link? I'm not
I,
sure if I did.
I don't think so, but it's just authoracademy.com.au for Australia, right?
Yeah, and /gifts,
Oh,
GIFTS.
/gifts. Okay.
That'll take that page.
Okay.
But yeah, so if you're in business, for instance, and you have been in business for a few years and you now want to take it to the next level, you
Mhm.
definitely should write a book about your business. Now, whether that is me helping you or not,
Right.
it's something that you should consider because it will, you know, take you to that next level. you will be the authority in your industry, and, people are going to gravitate to you more so than someone without a book.
Right. Totally. Yeah, I think that's really cool. So I appreciate you coming on today and visiting with us. And, again, whether you're using this for a business or to connect with others that you've had to have a shared experience, I think it's good for who writes it. And then for the people who read it, obviously they get knowledge and connection and empowerment through those who read it. And you just never know, right? It's a ripple effect. You just never know who will pick up, especially if you're printing them or sending them out as ebooks or whatever the case may be. You never know who's going to pick it up and use it as a resource. It's kind of a pay it forward thing, I would think as well.
Oh, definitely.
Sue, thanks for coming on today and look forward to visiting with you in the future.
Thank you so much, Matt, for having me. It's been absolutely wonderful.
Thank you for being a part of the BriteVibe podcast. For more information, go to britevibe.com. That's BRITE vibe, VIBE.com. Thank you for listening.